The Prime Minister is calling for shareholders to be given binding votes on executive pay as part of measures aimed at dealing with what he sees as excessive salary increases. A recent survey found that total earnings for directors in FTSE 100 companies, that's the big public companies, rose by 49%, a shade under a half, in 2010. David Cameron was speaking this morning on the Andrew Marr Show on BBC One. He said he wanted to bring to an end a culture in which failure was rewarded.
What we should be doing here is, what are the best market tools to try and correct this market failure? And I think transparency is a key tool, so we can all see what's happening, and then clear vote, so you're empowering the shareholder.
And
as I say, the other things are...
When you say transparency, give us some sense of how many salaries or at what level we're talking about outside the boardroom itself.
Well, what we've done with banks is now actually the toughest remuneration rules for banks and financial institutions, I think, anywhere in the world, where it's around the 8 top paid people have to be declared, and that's something this government has
something
done.
Similar for other companies.
Well, I don't want to steal all of Vince Cable's thunder. He'll be making the announcements early this new year, but what I wanted to explain is the absolutely key change, where you make more information transparently available, you empower shareholders to vote on those things, and you stop the rewards for failure. I think
Higher Pay Commission reported a few weeks ago. Well, Professor Chris Roebuck from London's Cass Business School takes an interest in all that, and he's with me now. Thank you very much for talking to us. First of all, the basic argument about executive pay, it has gone up at an enormous rate for companies, whether they've been doing well or doing badly. That is correct, is it?
Yeah, the figures are quite clear, and depending which group of companies you analyse, it has almost doubled in the last 10 to 12 years, and we haven't seen a requisite increase in performance. And let's be fair, if you said to a chief executive, would you accept your employees being paid more than the value of their performance, the chief executive would say, well, that's madness. So why shouldn't it be the other way around as well?
Yes. But if in the free market system, if people are willing to be paid, as you say, more money, and people want to pay them more money, that's the way the market works, because if you don't pay them the money, they go elsewhere.
Well, that's always the argument that's put forward, but over the last 150 years, what we've done is, as we've seen situations where the market has gone off the rails and has been doing things it shouldn't be doing, we've actually intervened in a way that actually has calmed down the market effect. And maybe we're getting to a point now where that needs to happen in terms of executive pay. I think it's quite clear that there are 4 key problems. One, there are senior leaders in business who think they should get paid more than their value. 2, remuneration committees and non-executive directors are not strong enough to stop those people misbehaving. 3, shareholders are not in the position to hold either of those 2 to account. And 4, neither government's done much about it, despite the symptoms being plain.
Well, what do you think of David Cameron's proposals? Do they add up to very much?
Yes, if they're implemented, what we need to do is we need to have a position where a non-executive director or a remuneration committee can say to a chief executive or senior leaders, look, we're sorry, the objectives you have set yourselves are too easy. The pay you are trying to get is too much for performance, and not be worried about being sacked or disposed of in some way, shape or form the year afterwards. We also need to have shareholders who have the capacity to be able to turn round at a meeting and say, no, you cannot have that pay, no, you cannot find a way around the AGM, and you have to have at least a 2/3 majority in favour. If something like that happens, it will make a difference.
What about the comparison with other people who earn a great deal of money? Directors are constantly being criticised. I mean, in the case, perhaps, let's say, of the banks, some of that criticism is perhaps well understood. But, for example, footballers' pay has gone right, well, absolutely into the stratosphere, hasn't it? But people are sort of envious, but they don't criticise it as such. Why not?
Maybe they don't criticise it because they don't feel they've got any power over it at all, because shareholders don't vote on footballers' pay directly. And certainly, to be fair, if you take the top 10 paid FTSE 100 chief executives, most top Premiership footballers get significantly more than they do. And some people might question the value of the performance of certain footballers against the money they're given. There's a core question in terms of the market here, which is, does performance reflect in pay? And there's a moral question as well, which is it right that any individual in 1 year should earn more than the lifetime earnings of a nurse or a soldier fighting in Afghanistan. And that's something society needs to think about as well.
How does it work in other countries? Thinking, not America is always held up in this example. That's a freebooting capitalist country. Fine. What about Germany, though? They have a successful economy, by and large.
Yes.
Problems with the euro at the moment. But they are very successful, big companies
Yes.
that do very, very well. Do they tackle this in a different way? Are their executives highly overpaid or not?
Generally speaking, culturally, there is a difference between the US, the UK and Europe. What tends to happen is we're somewhere in the middle. If you look at the US, there are chief executives who, for example, are getting paid 200, 300 times more than their average employee. Here, maybe it's about 120, 130. Over in Europe, it is less. Also in Europe, we have a significantly greater number of family-run companies that are quite big, where there is a much tighter control of pay. But even in the larger European companies, there is a smaller differential between average employee pay and actual pay of the chief executives. So we're a bit in the middle, and we have to say, actually, are we going too far towards the free market in America, or should we be more European?
Professor Roebuck, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.